just know where you're going because we could not figure that sign out. And sometimes, if that's what you're counting on, you might get turned around, and especially in an area like that where it's kind of deserty and things might start looking the same.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I don't know who did the math on those signs because I swear we saw, uh, I swear we saw like 2.5, 2.7, like around that every time.
We can wander our way over, because this is Wandering Ways.
What's Bigfoot possibility?
Clink.
Link.
How are you?
Oh, perfect and getting better. How are you, my guy?
Oh, just living the outdoor dream, out here in Montana, big sky country.
Yeah, I feel that. No, I mean, shoot, weather's been good here. Tons of stuff to do outside. Tons of things. So getting that vitamin D, that much needed vitamin D.
You know what's kind of crazy, man? I've been experiencing a lot of heat, right? Like we went to Hawaii, got the 90 degrees and humid, right? We had that pit stop in Phoenix with 117. Then when we got back to Oregon, it was like 112, 115, right? Just kind of hovered in there for a bit. Hot, 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 right? Get back to Montana right after that. It was hundreds in Billings, hundreds in Sealy, and it was just hot, hot, hot. And then today I was driving home and it was starting to rain. It was 70 degrees and raining. And I was like, oh my gosh, the day I prayed for rain, man. Like I didn't realize it would come soon. And I'm like, oh, it just feels nice to be like comfortable.
Look at you. You getting like cold weather. I don't think I've experienced below 95 since being back.
I believe it. And I believe it because today was my first day. But look at this dark golden tan that your boys got going on here. That's
Yeah,
just
you got that.
that.
You got that good. Anyway, I got something special I wanted to share today because we've talked about it. Oh, shoot. It's been a while, I think. I don't know. We talked about it in June.
Oh yeah, we did. It's kind of
Pretty
one of
sure.
those. It's kind of one of those reoccurring themes because it's one of those topics that's pretty debatable, I would say.
Oh,
Um,
no, we did talk about it in June.
oh, good.
There's no debating that part, but
You remember? I'm just saying. I'm debating the fact that we talk about this subject quite a bit because it is kind of controversial. And what's really interesting about me is the parties involved. The two. Why who's for it and why who's not for it, and the reasons. And the reasons kind of being crazy. Um, but go ahead. I'll let you get into it first. I'll let you go ahead and cap it off.
I was mine has no mine's just kind of more about the numbers anyway. But we talked about wolves and how Idaho had a law where they were just basically, in my personal opinion, that they were going to just start murdering wolves. Interesting enough, Wisconsin has had legal wolf killings at least the last year, and they did a number on the number of wolves, or they did a study on the number of wolves they lost. And they've lost last year, April 2020 to April 2021, roughly 313 wolves to 323, or 27 to 33% of the population of wolves in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Um,
that's crazy.
yeah, and the reason why I got brought up is because they think they hunted about 220 of them, and then they estimate another like 100 died because of winter.
Oh,
Um, and then they're also, in the article, they're saying they're also being kind of favorable on it because they realize that there's a lot of poaching with
oh
wolves.
yeah.
So
There really is. There's always been that like shoot, shovel, shut up kind of mentality when it comes to the wolves.
yeah,
Um, which is kind of an ignorant mindset if you think about it, just because guys, you got to be a little smart about this. Like when you have the apex predator, the American gray wolf, the North American gray wolf that ranges from Alaska to Mexico. These animals, right? People are like, oh, when you introduced them in Montana, you introduced the Alaskan wolves. Okay, yeah, but they introduced small ones. They introduced ones that are going to adapt to the temperatures they're used to the environment they're going to be in. And, when the wolf population moves south, they're going to start, their fur's not going to be as thick because the weather's a little bit warmer. It does adapt, and it's over these few generations that we see it. We really have seen the Yellowstone wolf packs be at this like healthy population size where the wolves are doing their job in Yellowstone, right? So if they're doing their job in Yellowstone, that means they need to do their job in the surrounding areas, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. They're not doing that in certain areas because certain industries in those areas want to thrive, farming and hunting. And with hunting, you can bring a lot of money in if some New Yorker or some Californian wants to come to the state and hunt a wolf, right? Or if farmers like, fuck this, these wolves keep getting in, they get my chickens, they get my cows, I can take 1 or 2 cows dying off in the winter, but if 6, 7 of them go because of a wolf, of my 10,000 herd, that's money out of my pocket, and that's money I'm counting on because of how these farmers and ranchers work out here. And I understand that, and I understand that in Wisconsin because there's more people there, so you're not going to want as big of a wolf population.
Well, what I found interesting about the numbers when it comes to Wisconsin, I think it's important to note, and it even says it in the article that I have up, that this decline happened even though there was a hunting quota of 119 wolves. And then they also said that and I'm going to butcher this name, and I apologize now, the Ojibwe tribes.
Ojibwa
Tribes.
Ojibwa. That's like little
something like that. They were granted a quota of 81 wolves, making it roughly 200 wolves total. But the tribe did not do a single hunt.
No, because they see the wolves as spiritual over there. And I could see.
I thought that was interesting that there's almost, I think almost 100 wolves unaccounted for hunting wise. Which is, it's honestly what it is it's just poor management.
Oh, and that's what you're going to get with something like this, because it's so controversial on both sides that both sides aren't going to, they're not going to give you the exact numbers they want to give you. And it's kind of scary because I've seen it in my lifetime where a place gets overhunted with deer, right? Gets overhunted. It's not good for a few years. People stop showing up, because you start seeing more and more, and it just gets worse. And, if you're killing, say, 100 deer out of this area, 100 wolves out of a certain area, right? They're not going to come back in population as fast, right, in that first year. And then you're going to go out again, and that same number, if not more hunters, because every year we see hunting numbers go up, right, are taking more animals. So the animal populations aren't growing back as fast enough to where we can, where they repopulate to where you can take the same amount every year. So things are changing and regulations are changing. That's why you see in certain states where, like in Montana, for example, our deer tags, I can get a deer tag and use it anywhere in the state of Montana, right? And that's fine. In like a state of Oregon, you have to put that deer tag in for a certain district because that's a small area. Well, as Montana becomes more and more hunted, more and more populous, we're going to start going to a district system. And what that means is now you can only take so many out of an area because the numbers are not what they used to be, or the area can't support those numbers as they used to be. Because that's the other side of it, is as we develop places and do things to certain places, it controls the wildlife, and we got to keep them smaller. That's why in Wisconsin, you're going to have less wolves than you are in like a Montana, Idaho, and whatnot. That's why the numbers you really have to watch. But it's a twofer, right? Because we need food to survive, with some of our wheat and farms and big ranches out here in Montana. So the ranchers are like, hey, if they're destroying our fields, we can't be having that. You want your McDonald's hamburger, I can't be having them take my cows every night. So there is that too, so you do have to manage these things, but what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. And going back to our last debate, I look at like, wolves used to be out on the plains. So I think it's appropriate that they should be out on these Great Plains out here in Montana. So as long as the mountain populations are thriving, your mountains are going to be healthy. And I think that'll be great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anytime you can go away from the mono culture of something, it's going to be better in the long run. I mean, you can see it kind of across the board in many things. So it would make sense you want to keep it. And I get the argument, the hunters and the farmers and all that. I get their argument. I think they're valid. But I think the thought process there is more narrowly thought in their terms. They're not thinking that long-term goal. They're thinking like, it got my sheep today type deal. There's pros and cons to thinking about that full on. I don't want to doubt that, because for some people, losing a sheep that day does mean death long term. I don't think that's necessarily the case for a lot of these farmers or even hunters, but that does happen time to time. But monoculture is not a good thing. So having that food chain system, having top predators, yes, it needs, and I get it. If they get crazy numbers, if like for some reason, like we're just getting overthrown by wolves, let's talk about managing it.
Oh, and to look at the coyote populations. The coyote populations are at, a healthy amount. So let the wolves get to that healthy, sustainable amount. And then treat them as such, let them get there. I don't think they're there. And I think the problem is you look at states like Montana and Idaho who are going with huge numbers of wolves. The state of Montana has SB 134, in the Montana state to pass a bill. And it's saying they want to keep 15 breeding pairs in the state. So that's 30 wolves at least minimum that are breeding. When a wolf has puppies, they have 9 sometimes, because it's a dog. Dogs have a healthy litter, but that's because they're expected to lose a few young. And as they get older, that's just how it works. And they do if they're thriving in an area such as Yellowstone and the Montana mountains, and when the elk populations are overly as big as they have been, they're going to thrive in those first few years. But as we've seen Yellowstone and the success, the numbers are starting to get balanced. The change is starting just to be, nice and level, nice and easy, the way it's supposed to be. And I look at that and I'm like, well, let's get our national forests to that level. Let's get our state lands to that level. Let's get them at least par. Let's stay par. Let's not go below it. We'll try and get above it. We'll try and be better than it, but let's just get to par first, because we haven't been there for years. And I think if we can at least achieve that balance, things get better. Ecosystems get better. Our weather gets better.
Yeah. The one question I would have, to play kind of a devil's advocate, it's the correct term, but I don't know, it might be a little too harsh in this sense, is like, what is that number though, right? What if it is 15 breeding pairs?
I think that's too small, because like I said, I think.
But that's what I mean, Mike, right? What is the number?
I think you have to take a look at where these breeding pairs are in the state.
Maybe they have. I don't know how they got their number.
I just think when you look at states like Idaho and Montana, and you're killing 90% essentially of these wolves off, if I'm taking 15 breeding pairs, right? That's at least 30 wolves. How many wolves are in an average pack? You look at the Yellowstone packs, we'll say 10, so we'll say 150 wolves minimum. Minimum 150 wolves is what the state's saying is good. I think your population should be in the thousands, 2000s in this state.
But why?
Uh,
What if that's too many?
what are your reasons for it being too many?
Well, if there's too many, then all of a sudden the same issues you were seeing where the elk were over thriving, and then it had the damage on the prairies, the bees, and all that. And all of a sudden you've tipped the scale the other way. Just because you have an overabundance of a predator, that then means that you're not anymore going to get the antelope, the elk that are going to be trimming up these, and you're
I
going to
mean,
create a whole nother issue.
we haven't even reached that yet.
I get that. I get that.
So
But my
let's not worry
argument
about.
is,
Let's
why
not
is
worry.
the thousands? The thousands may not be the number. That may be too many.
I don't think so.
Why don't you think so? I mean, where are your, have you gone out and done the study on it?
There's at least 15 breeding pairs in Yellowstone Park, in those mountains, in those hills, in those areas, right? You have the at least.
You got some
And
anecdotal stuff, but you don't have like the concrete stuff, which is typically what's used in making these decisions.
I'm I don't need the concrete stuff because the anecdotal stuff is enough. When you look at,
That's not true at all.
come at me with
Because
some concrete stuff you
the
have.
same anecdotal argument is what the farmers do. Well, if you're killing my livestock, you don't get food. We lose food.
And you're not wrong there. And I see that, but you can see that we're producing enough food with the current numbers of wolves of where we're at, to where there's no real shortage
Are there?
that is causing severe problems. I think we can reach that point. I think if you don't manage things properly, you can reach those points in both extremes. But I think the management right now is very improper. And
I
it's
agree with that standpoint. The management is improper. But the question is, what is like the number? Because you don't want to tip it too far, because by the time you realize you have too high of a number, it could be too late.
I think the problem with that too is, you historically, you look at the historical numbers, and since the time of man, they've just gone down, right? Just straight down. And we've tried to build them back up, and you can see that. You can see the successes of some, and what some experts may say is a good amount, a healthy amount, and what others may not, But I think when you get down to the gist of it, it's really hard to find that, and there is a fine line when it comes down to it, is because our population has grown so significantly in this time. In the last 20, 30 years, we've put 2 more billion people on this planet. We've that's a third, essentially. We're at 7 billion people. We essentially put a third of the people living on this planet in this such a small amount of time, where those numbers of certain animals were really high or low when there was less people. So the effect that we as society have on it too plays a role.
Could
And
we argue that the number of humans on this planet is too high, and that it is a great example of what could happen if we have too many wolves?
I don't think with the amount of humans we'd ever have that issue with wolves.
I'm not saying you're going to have 3 billion wolves, but I think, you can make it so it's similar to where there's too many, and then what you're having what human impact does to populations. Now you're having wolf impact to populations.
I mean, but it's very rarely that these apex predators, unless they are in a unnatural habitat, like the hippos down in Colombia, and how they've just like
You have too many wolves, all of a sudden it's harder for them to find food, and all of a sudden they're going to look in places they didn't do before, which is unnatural, and then we start having problems.
I mean, yeah, and if we get to that problem, I don't think we'll get to that problem.
I'm not arguing that point.
You're not giving me a realistic explanation of getting to that problem.
I'm asking what the number is. You're saying thousands.
Not hundreds.
Yeah, but what is the number? What if 15 is the number?
I don't think that's a healthy number.
But why don't you? Where's your evidence?
It's not a healthy number. I don't need evidence right now with you.
You always need evidence.
Yeah.
So pigs can fly.
But you just spring a wolf debate on me. You spring a wolf debate on me and not give me time to amply prepare. And then you come at me with these ridiculous questions.
It's because you're not giving, if you are passionate about a topic, you should have something to back up. I literally just popped this article today. I read it right before we got on. So I know as much as you, if not less. I didn't recite a bill in the Montana state government.
And I did.
So you should be more prepared than me.
And I have been. You're coming out.
But you have no evidence.
You're out here in ridiculous land.
You have no evidence, is all I'm saying.
I have a whole episode of evidence.
You said no. I said why. You said you have nothing.
Because I'm not going to give you false evidence on a show like this in front of guests where you're trying to get me to, mess up.
I'm not trying to get you mess up. If you don't have evidence, if you don't have it, the correct answer is more like could be, but I don't have anything to prove it. Personally, I don't think it is.
And did I not do that earlier?
You said, I don't think it is. And you said we need over 1,000.
Based on me not having evidence, that was my answer to you as I stated it. You're just walking in circles.
No, forget this. We got more important things to talk about today than getting into this silliness right now.
You know what that means? Time for another commercial break where we get to tell you to like, subscribe, and review our podcast. Whether you're getting that podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, WhatsApp, whatever podcast app you use, you can make it happen.
And don't forget, this is also the time to let you guys know that you can pick up that Wandering Ways swag at the Teespring. Make sure to check it out. The link is in the bio down below or in the episode description. It's even in the show description too if you can't find it in the episode. But you can go on there. You can get your sweatshirts. You can get your shirts. You can get long sleeves, short sleeves. You can even get some socks. It looks pretty cool. Highly recommend. You will be impressing everybody at your next bonfire with some Wandering Ways swag.
And if that's not enough, we're going to tell you to follow us individually on our social medias. You could check me out at the Rugru or Zach of Wandering Ways. Check out the adventure firsthand where there might not be any ads.
Exactly. And who doesn't like some good free pub? I need the followers to go up. So I'm going to throw out Reverend Marcus. Check me out on the Twitter, on the Instagram. I do some cool stuff. So please give me the follow. All right.
We also do not cool stuff.
Yeah. But anyways, let's keep wandering on. And the more important thing is you've probably all know, you've probably all see, it's something, mix things up because it will help flow into this episode a little bit more, but we're going to do cool shit in nature right now so there's not a weird pause later. And I promise it will make it flow good for this episode because it's something I wish we could have seen while we were in Hawaii.
Oh,
But
fuck
we
you.
missed it by about a month. So,
why you gotta do this to me?
and this was actually in the park, the Hawaii Volcano Park. And that what we got going is like the lava lake, the lava flowing in the lava lake. It's just a time lapse, so it's really pretty and quick.
I'm curious how slow that is in real life. Like the time lapse is moving kind of quick. It's your classic, just kind of the like square tiley looking lava on the ground, the lava lake. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see.
Like, is it moving? Like, is this moving? How fast? I mean, it looks like. I mean, the steam's moving kind of quick. So I would say this is over the matter of at least a couple minutes. But
Oh, I think it's more than a couple minutes.
you think this is a couple hours?
No. It might be an hour.
So it's moving real slow then, you think? Yeah, I guess that's why you only really see time lapses of lava moving like this.
Yeah.
It must
I'm trying
move.
to guess based off the steam and the clouds in it.
I mean, based on going to Hawaii, I do think that the lava rock, just by looking down at it, when you're there, when you're at the national park and you're looking down at the rock, you see the like it almost does look like it moved slow. Like when you squeeze glue or something out of a glue tube, that's kind of like how the rock like hardens, like when you see the super glue like dry real fast. That's what I guess I think lava rock might be, and if it's moving that fast.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying.
No, I do get what you're saying. And I think it, yeah.
Or maybe hot glue would be better than super glue. Like the way it like drips out of the thing and then like creates those like sludge balls. Like that's kind of that look sometimes. But then there's different types of lava. Like we saw the different rocks. So I wonder if like it moves quicker when it's this hot, or I don't know. I wish we would have learned more about lava. The visitor center was closed.
Yeah. No, that oh yeah, it was. That was all but, back when we still had COVID rules.
I guess, man, back in the day.
Yeah. But if you couldn't guess it, we're going to go back and talk about our time in Hawaii, but we're doing it differently today as we are doing one of our famous Wandering Ways breakdowns. We are going to break down the Hawaii Volcano National Park.
I'm excited.
I am too. It's the park we stayed in. We spent time there. Hopefully try and break it down so that way if you personally want to go out and go to Hawaii Volcanos National Park, use some of the tips and tricks and things that you hear here to make your trip, because I think it's worth going. It is hard, which brings up the first thing we can knock off this breakdown. You have to get to the big island of Hawaii to get there first, which that there can only really fly.
Yeah.
Can't, if you're in Nebraska, I don't think you're going to get your car there.
No. Well, unless I got some of those military guys that sometimes ship their cars down there, but that means you're staying quite a while and you're probably going from island to island. But you can do that if you're that crazy and ridiculous. But the average goer is probably flying. And what we found out is you're most likely probably going to fly through Honolulu at some point. Or if you get direct, that's nice. There was some direct flights.
Yeah, I think they have into Kona. There's direct.
And Hilo too, I think I saw had a few like Southwest flights that might have flown. But for the most part, I think you're island hopping a little bit too. If you want to save money like us.
I know like with the islands near the big island, because there's those two, I think Maui's one of them. You can do like
Maui and Kauai, I think, right?
You can do a ferry between. Because I looked into what it would be. Could you do it from Oahu when we were planning the trip? You can't get a ferry from Oahu. You can do the ferry from the other two islands, which I guess is another way to get there. But it is kind of a challenge to get to the big island itself.
Yeah,
but if you make it, it's worth it.
It was fun, and I mean, we figured it out. It was real easy. Just get in the airport, get on a little island, skip, hop, flip, fly right over. Beautiful.
Yes.
But then you have to drive, even both ways. If you're flying into Hilo, you're flying into Kona. Kona, it's like 100 miles. It's kind of a long drive.
Kona is a trek. It's I think it was what, like 2.5 hour drive.
Both ways, essentially, to get there. I feel like if you're going to go,
Hilo's like 40 minutes.
which wasn't bad. If you're flying into Hilo or using Hilo as a base, it's nice. The whole island really is. We didn't really get to check out the top side, but
Yeah, we kind of just did half. But yeah, if you go Hilo, it's a little bit closer. Kona's a longer one. Kona's a much longer one. It's a pretty drive. Going down. There's stops along the way. But that's kind of for how to get there. Now, when you are there, you're probably there for two reasons. One, because you heard it here on the podcast, Wandering Ways, and you're like, I want to go. But the other reason, probably the more important reason why you went or wanting to go, is it's right in the name. It's got volcanoes.
they're kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Sucked that we didn't get to see the lava, but sometimes the lava is flowing, and it's been, since the creation of the park, since thousands of years ago. They can really tell you when this lava was flowing, how long it was flowing for, most likely, when it kind of all dried up. All the different beds, you're like 1973, 1980, this 2018, so all the way up till just a month ago they just said the lava was dried up. But one of these days it'll probably open back up again, or if not, that sucks. But
yeah, and you can see stuff like what you saw, if you're watching, in the cool shit in nature segment.
yeah, exactly. Or just Google Iceland volcano and you probably see some that right now moving live.
Yeah. Yeah, Iceland's got the one that's popping right now. But yeah, there's a ton of craters, lava fields. It's, if you're geothermal centric, this is kind of the place for you. They got vents, heating, like the steam vents, which are cool.
I didn't like, though, the people were throwing money in some.
Yeah, that was a huge bummer.
That got me going, because it's like, don't do that. That just makes the park, that's litter essentially at that point. Put the money towards the park or towards a good cause. Don't throw it in the thing.
Yeah, and I don't know why people were throwing like dollar bills in there.
I'm surprised there wasn't signs.
I was too. Now that, well, maybe there's someone comes into the park and picks it up and that's like his tip or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Unless I mean, I don't see it being ceremonial in a way. Because I do understand sometimes, like, you'll sometimes see like cigarettes left as like a tobacco offering in native culture. But I don't think like money or wealth, like silver and gold, essentially, by giving money like that, if that was like a Hawaiian thing. But they didn't really have silver and gold over there. So I don't see that.
yeah, I don't.
Because I didn't see the signs, and maybe they just didn't have them up, or they need to put some up. But
Yeah,
I was not a fan of seeing, like, people can be better. Like, especially in Yellowstone, you see people throw money into the hot pots at Yellowstone. It's like, that's just litter, and it destroys the bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but the vents are still cool. You see the steam come up.
Oh yeah.
There's a few craters that you can go. Some of them you can go into. We went into one. We went into the main one, the main crater there, the same one that you can drive around to. It's called the Crater Rim Drive. It's a short drive, but it takes you to the other side of, like, I think it was the first crater of the.
And I think it's the same one in 2018 that fell some more.
Yeah.
It's right there. You can see it right from the visitor center, or not the visitor center, but the hotel actually overlooks
Volcano House, which we'll get into in a second. But
okay.
The Crater Rim Drive, yeah, it's a short one. to this other visitor. I think it's another visitor center over there. It was closed, so we didn't even really bother to go and look. Um, but it takes it. I mean, it's gorgeous. More views of the crater, you know.
Yeah, walking down in it wasn't bad. I mean, you just kind of walk down the ledges to get down into it. Once you're down on it, you feel like you're in a desert, which is kind of cool because, like, being in Hawaii, you think tropical, you think jungle, you think rainforest, but no, here it's like desert out there, and the cool little trees grow up in the cracks, and
Yeah.
you're literally walking on volcano rock, so it's rocky.
Yeah, it's cool being down in the crater. It would be something I would recommend anybody to do. I think it's mostly accessible for anyone. There's a lot of shorter hikes into it. There's a lot of hiking kind of trails that you can kind of do a whole bunch of different things all in one area.
I
So you can
think
turn what is like only a mile hike into 8 miles if you want of these intricate trails they have going around. It goes into craters, out of craters, into forests there.
I think a good way of putting it too is it kind of reminded me of Badlands National Park, where like Badlands is like open range for walking. This one wasn't necessarily open range, but there were so many trails to do that they were interconnected like that I was going to say you also need to make sure you kind of know what you're doing, because I swear to God, we saw a sign that said zero point 0.5 miles for the
Oh
same
yeah.
destination on like 3 different signs. So just know where you're going, because we could not figure that sign out. And sometimes, if that's what you're counting on, you might get turned around, and especially in an area like that where it's kind of deserty and things might start looking the same.
Yeah, that was yeah, I don't know who did the math on those signs because I swear we saw uh I swear we saw like 2.5, 2.7, like around that every time we hit a sign.
Right? They were like the same number for the same hike.
Yeah, which was kind of funny to experience. But yeah, there's a lot, and this area is kind of closer to the visitor center in general. It's very, very populated. You know, it's kind of the main spot. I think everyone goes because there are a lot of trails to hike. And also there's the lava tube, which is super cool in that area.
Yeah, and honestly, we did it right, I think. And by chance and luck, because we're like, let's get up early. We hit the park early. The visitor center was closed. There was nobody in that parking lot. When we hit the lava tube, we are the only people at the lava tube when we went
Yeah.
through.
Oh no, there was that gal ran through it.
But we had enough of our own time there. Like in
Yes,
reality, we didn't really share it with anybody.
that's
Um,
very true.
because we got there early.
Yes. Yeah, no,
Uh,
I mean shoot. We've probably heard it on here at least 13 times. Go early. Go early into these parks. You're gonna beat the crowds. And Hawaii Volcano National Park was no exception. You know, when we got out in the park, which was early, we did the Crater Rim Drive. We saw like one group. We went down and we went to the lava tube again, one, maybe two groups the whole time. We then did I think it's the Chain of Craters Drive, which takes you all the way to the coast. Very minimal people. We got back up to the visitor center after doing that, and everybody was out and about. It was a drastic change. I
it
mean,
really was crazy, honestly.
yeah, I mean, you're waiting in lines for everything. Parking, harder to find at the visitor center, near the lava tube hike, near some of the trailheads to get down in. You know, parking, what wasn't an issue became an issue in the popular areas
Yeah,
by
and
hit
we
the
had
afternoon.
and we had to kind of audible later in that afternoon. But like, I mean, early that morning, we were able to do the petroglyph hike
Yep.
kind of by ourselves. There was another family on a hike there. we walked down to the coast. We were kind of there by ourselves as well. When you do get out on that Craters Drive, so that was good. I mean, beautiful areas, beautiful views, just spectacular. I think if you haven't been to the Big Island and you start going there and you think of Hawaii, you think of the tall mountains like from Oahu or Maui, the kind of the tropicalness that this one doesn't have. You also get the size of this island. It's kind of a big island for being out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it was crazy as we were driving to the coastline there, like how high up we were, and then how we dropped basically to, I don't know, like 100 feet, because however tall the cliff was.
well, and what's crazy is we stayed at the cabins there at the volcano house, and we're sitting about 4,000 feet above sea level right there.
Yeah.
And we essentially that's where Billings, Montana sits at 3,000 feet above sea level, right? That's crazy. That's high up. That's high desert, right? We're sitting at volcano house cabins at 4,000 feet sleeping, right? You're really not that far from the ocean, which is kind of crazy how but also how gradual these hills are. They're kind of like they're just like the same grade. I don't know what it is. It's just
Well,
I
it
was thrown
was
off.
same grade, and then it was very, very steep. Because there was that section where it's just really steep, but it's not a very long section.
But that's what throws you off, I think, is like it is very steep, but it's like not that bad. Or
No,
doesn't feel that
it's
bad.
short. It's short, which is what's weird, because when you're up at 4,000 feet, you can see the ocean, and you're so high above the ocean. It's a cool kind of look.
It's
There's
weird.
it is weird.
It's
Um,
it's worth it.
Totally. I mean, as you do the drive down to the coast, there's a ton of pull-offs for the scenic views, and I recommend stopping at least one, because it's just lava rock,
Mhm.
and then it's ocean, which is nuts.
Yeah, we saw some cool stuff. We did hit a few of those, which I liked.
Yeah, and I would recommend the um, the petroglyph hike. Um, you don't necessarily have to be into like petroglyphs for me to recommend it to you, because it's one of the few, I think, shorter hikes that you can do easy, where you're just out on the lava fields, where
Hmm.
it's like hiking in the desert, but it's all rock, and you're less than a mile from the ocean. So, which that in itself is cool. And then the petroglyphs are equally as cool. But I think just for the hike itself is kind of worth doing it.
Yeah, it is it's a little bit easier of a hike, which is
Mhm.
I think why it's a good recommendation to do. The petroglyphs, which I think should be called pictographs because of the style of how they're done versus petroglyphs being more paint. These are rock carvings kind of in the rock, and the Hawaiians did it, and it's kind of the story of birth. You make your sign there in the lava rock, and it was kind of cool to see that and see some of the art, that's probably been there for thousands of years. And I just imagine, when I worked at Pompey's Pillar, the sandstone stuff that the average everyday guest doesn't get to see, because it's like if we showed it to everyone, it would get destroyed, it would get ruined, it wouldn't be as sacred as what it is, all that, right? I'm just curious, where's that at in Volcanoes National Park? Because I
Right.
know there's probably some cool carvings that
Oh,
they're like
100%.
people would ruin these. Like we gotta just leave them here.
100%. I think it's hilarious when you do the hike, because you're just walking on rock, walking on rock, walking on rock, and then all of a sudden you see just this random boardwalk, you know,
Right.
and it's just some stairs, and boom, it just looks like so random. Uh,
That's kind of how Medicine Wheel is in the Bighorns. You're on this like mountain path that turns into kind of like a road that once you get then it like turns into like a dirt parking lot and like boardwalk around the Medicine Wheel, and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah,
this built it for like the areas.
yeah, it's it's a cool little thing. Highly recommend the hike, just so you can experience walking on the lava rock fields like that. And then go to the coast, obviously, because cliffs. It's pretty cool to be at the ocean right there. Um, the other thing most people are probably wondering is staying there. Now, staying either there or nearby. We told you we stayed at cabins that they had there, the park, Volcano House. You can rent cabins. There's a good amount of them. Highly recommend if you're looking for a home base. It's camping, but with the cabin. So if you are traveling to the island and don't want to take your camping gear, it's a good alternative to still get camping feel without having to carry all your stuff to the big island from the lower 48. Or if you are some of our Hawaii listeners and you're just looking to take your camping gear for a weekend, you probably already knew about the park anyway, but they have regular campsites too. So you can do the whole tent. The tree situation, I didn't see over there too much, so I don't know how well hammocks will work. But it's a good little campground that they have.
And they got some backcountry too, which we found out about. There was a guy I ended up actually talking to at the campsite that told us about them camping in the backcountry and it being a lot of fun. Which, if you're in the backcountry, there's some of that there. You can get out to some cool spots along the coast. As well as there's a lot of Airbnbs and bed and breakfasts. We saw a lot of those by the park,
Yep.
especially in Volcano.
Yep. And then there is a hotel in the park. It overlooks one of the lava craters there, so it's super cool.
And in Hilo and in Kona if you're staying at the resorts.
Oh yeah, tons of hotels, resorts for that. But yeah, the backcountry was something we didn't really look into a whole lot, partially because we weren't taking all of our backcountry gear. And other part, you hear Hawaii volcanoes, you don't necessarily think backcountry, but listening to that story, it sounds like backcountry could be really cool.
And I think in any of the parks it really is, because when we really look at who explores the parks in the way that we do, you see that there's just a lot more people going to the visitor centers, going to the Old Faithfuls, the main attractions, the delicate arches, the viewpoints or the lookouts, just because of ability to get to some of those places. So I think when it comes to backcountry, if you're into that, any park, it's really worth it. And do it. It's a must do if you're into that. That's where you're going to have the experience you want to have. And that goes down with anything in any of the parks. You're the one who sets up the experience you want to have. Do you want to stay at the hotel or do you want to camp? Do you want to spend 2 nights there or 3 nights? And these are things you just have to think about, like, what do we like to do? What kind of memories do we want to create? What kind of fun do we want to have? And on our trip, we said, hey, we're doing 2 islands. We can't do backcountry. That's a whole different type of fun. That's a whole different type of preparedness for next time. For next time, guys.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of these, it comes down to what you want to do. And this park allows you at any level of things you want to do. From if you just want to go for the day and do a hike, totally can. If you want to stay, camp, totally can. If you want to see the visitor center, do all that kind of deal, totally can. Want to go backcountry, totally can. So, that's beautiful part about most of these parks, and Hawaii Volcanoes doesn't go away from that that same pattern. So, when it comes down to it, I think Hawaii Volcanoes super dope. I would like to go back. I want to go a lot of other places, so I don't know how high on the list of places I want to go right now it is, but I do want to go back.
I feel that. I agree. I do too. I would preferably probably be like, yeah, maybe backcountry the next time.
Yeah.
And maybe I would want to plan it when the lava is flowing, just because I've been there there's a lot of other cool places like Iceland and Costa Rica and Panama and all these cool places I'd want to go and check out first before I prioritize coming back. If there's lava, that might help entice me, all that. It just depends.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of places I want to go. Even here in the United States, there's a lot of parks I want to go to. I was just looking at them today. There's a lot of stuff kind of east of the Rockies I haven't been to. I've done almost all of them here west of the Rockies. The east haven't spent a whole lot of time. I need to get out there.
Do some more breakdowns.
All that cool stuff. Huh?
And do some more breakdowns.
Well, that's why we do it. No, we do it because I like to get out and do that kind of thing. I'm itching to get out right now because, I'm probably stupid busy and probably can't get outside and do cool adventures for a little bit. So
I'm doing that for you.
Yeah, someone's got to keep me sane.
There you go.
But yeah, this is kind of a good point to start wrapping it up because I am that guy. We're going to get into our final words. Final words, my guy.
Final words. I just looked up, just so you know, I looked up about the wolves real quick on the back burner here, and I saw there's actually no number to decide. You can't right here is quoted, you can't just count the number of wolves over a particular area and decide whether it's a healthy population. That's because the functional unit of wolves is the family. A wolf is only a wolf when it's part of an intact, unexploited family group capable of astonishingly beautiful and complex cooperative behaviors and unique traditions. So that's why I go back to it too. And that's probably why they say breeding pairs, right? Because that's the family structure. That's the one living in that den or in that area on that mountain. That's why when I say 15 is not too many, man, there should be at least one on every mountain, and there's more than 15 mountains in this state.
Yeah.
For it to be healthy. I understand that we have things and stuff on those mountains, so not all the mountains will have them, but to reach that healthy number, I think at least every mountain should have one pack.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I'm not saying 15 is the right number. I just don't know it. There has to be a number. I think there's always a number. Now, is the number findable? That's up for debate as well, but there is always a number.
And I guess where I come with my 1,000, 2,000, that's kind of where the populations have been at the last, 5 years. And I think that's a good population where you can have a small hunting regulation, which is going on, where they're taking a small amount. Yeah, there's the, shoot, shovel, and shut up guys still doing their thing, which is fine. It's going to happen regardless of the situation. But I think that the numbers are at that controlled rate that, yeah, you're starting to see them out on the plains, which is good. That means it's healthy. It's reaching the places that it should be. But those are also the guys who are, they're the ones at most risk, your farmers and ranchers of the wolves. And that's where you're seeing more of that shoot, shuttle, shut up. You're seeing a lot more of the exploited hunting. So I don't know. I just want to tell everyone with my final words, think about it. Think about what side of this debate you want to be on. I understand both sides clearly. I personally don't think I would ever hunt a wolf or shoot a wolf unless the wolf's going to try and kill me. Yeah, I'll probably shoot it because it's just what I would do. It'd be my instinct to do that. Be my best interests, I feel like, in that moment. A bear, different scenario. Not carrying a gun when I have a bear. No, I'm just kidding. It just all depends on the situation, the safety, who you're with, the whole situation. But be smart. Figure out what side of this you want to be on because it's important. This is an apex predator. It's like the sharks and the dolphins in the ocean. They're apex predators. We have to watch their numbers to help control the other numbers. And we got to decide where we want to be at that. I understand you have to hunt some. You have to kill some off. The bison are overpopulated in Yellowstone. We already do that. We already killed 2,000 of them off a year because of the overpopulation, right? So what are we doing with the wolves? We got to find that number. I think 90% is too much. I think 15 packs is too little. I think we need to figure out better numbers, more educated numbers, more solid numbers that help everybody. Our ecosystem relies on other ecosystems. So think. All right, my guy, it's all you.
Yeah, 100% there. Reverend's final words of wisdom. Stay beautiful, everybody. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you for listening each and every week. Hopefully you are. If you haven't, go back, check it out. There's a lot of good stuff out there. If you want to hear about our trip to Hawaii that we're talking about today, go back, listen to those. There's 2 parts. There's first part's Oahu, second part's the Big Island. Both are amazing and a lot of fun. As for anything, just try and be the best you that you can be. Treat everyone with love, because that's really the only way you should be treating. It's nice to be nice, so go out there, do something nice, because that's nice. That being said, though, peace out, everybody.
Bye.